Hey there, and welcome back to XCOM 2. My name is Pete, and today we complete what is going to be the second to last episode of our Legend Ironman walkthrough of XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Last time we left off after doing another small challenge run with our two Psi Operatives, Matt Lewin and Esteban Flores. However, most importantly perhaps, we began the Avatar Autopsy. As you can see in the bottom right corner, that will be finished in just 3 days, and doing so will mark the beginning of the end, so to speak. So let's jump into the world map once more and start scanning. Yet again, we are then presented with a rumor for assorted loot, and we might as well.
Avenger plotting new course.
There is nothing else to scan for at this point, and we do have some time to kill until the Avatar Autopsy is completed.
It won't be easy, but I think it's the only option we have at this point.
Agreed. We must inform the commander immediately.
Go right ahead.
Commander, Central, the Shadow Chamber has completed its analysis of the Avatar's DNA. It has identified the genetic sequence necessary to travel through the psionic gate.
Perfect. We can finally shut this Avatar project down for good.
However, the gate requires more than a mere transmission of genetic data.
The sequence has to be part of a live subject. The key only works in lockstep with the signal.
We don't have time to find another one of those things, let alone capture it.
No. That part we can handle. We make our own.
You're serious?
Quite. Though the specimen before us is damaged beyond repair, it has provided us with its complete genetic blueprint. We already possess an unaltered Avatar template from the Forge facility. That, combined with the genetic material we recovered at the Black Site, should allow us to replicate the procedure here.
So, what's the catch?
Yes, that. Without an elder consciousness driving it, the new Avatar would remain as lifeless as the one before us. While I can develop its body, I cannot create the mind to drive it.
But I can. In a way. By manipulating the new Avatar via the psionic network.
You want to operate one of these things? By remote control?
Not exactly. And definitely not me.
Interfacing directly with their network would cause severe, if not fatal, trauma to an unprepared central nervous system. As it stands, we only know of one individual who has survived that kind of ordeal.
That was different. The stasis suit.
Created the perfect interface to the network, one tailored to your specific biology, Commander. Of any human candidate, you are the most likely to survive the connection.
Most likely is not good enough, Doctor.
It is the only answer I can give you, and our only option to traverse the alien portal.
We need to come up with a game plan before we charge through the enemy's front door. Which will give you some time to think about this, Commander.
This specimen, this being is something else entirely, something beyond anything we have ever seen. And yet somehow, our troops once again prevailed.
Alright, that would be the A-Line Crossed achievement unlocked and the Avatar Autopsy completed. What have we learned? Well, first and foremost, we are now in possession of a way through the psionic gate. Unfortunately, it has to come in the form of a live avatar, but it looks like our staff has that part covered too. We'll simply make our own. There is a caveat: we, the commander, need to connect with the avatar to direct it through the gate and possibly beyond. That does not seem to be entirely risk-free, but it appears to be our only option. Now, Bradford also suggested coming up with a plan before charging right into the heart of the alien operation, and we'll see what that is in just a second.
I am ready to begin on your order, Commander.
First of all, though, with no further projects left in the Shadow Chamber, we can head back to the labs and queue up the data cache decryption. Don't worry, we have some time still.
I foresee a number of valuable applications stemming from this technology. I'll have a report assembled as soon as the research is complete.
And afterwards, we then return to the bridge to talk about the aforementioned plan.
Priority message message for the commander coming through on a secure channel, sir.
On screen.
Sir, it's coming from the Advent Network Tower.
You heard me. He's taking a big risk contacting us like this.
Hello, Commander. You and your crew are to be commended. Your efforts in rebuilding the Resistance network and uncovering the truth about the Avatar project have been admirable. I only wish I had better news to report.
When does he ever?
Advent is not taking the death of an elder lightly, and in turn have greatly accelerated the final stages of their Avatar project. A plan is now in place for the rapid processing of all non-essential human life, to begin immediately. Very soon, Advent's speaker will announce a breakthrough in gene therapy, a final treatment for the human condition. Billions will flock to gene therapy clinics across the globe. They will never return. I have managed to secure tactical data and access codes to the Advent Network Tower. The speaker's address will be broadcast live to a global audience via this facility. The whole of Advent's network will be listening. It is this hubris that we must use against them. The information I am sending you should allow Dr. Taigen and Chief Engineer Shen to take control of the transmission and disrupt their entire network from within. Though my hope is that this disruption will confuse the enemy's forces long enough to allow your final assault a chance of success, I ask one more thing of you. Take what you have learned. Let the world know what is happening here. Wake them up. Broadcast the truth before there is no one left to listen. It seems we are both out of time. Farewell, Commander.
New objective added.
So, looks like the Council's speaker is no more, but he did not go without helping us out one last time. We are now in possession of vital information about an Advent network tower. That tower is set to broadcast a global message very shortly, and our plan is to hijack that signal to disrupt Advent communication and to cause a bit of a ruckus, which should hopefully be enough of a distraction to then assault the aliens' HQ afterwards.
We're ready to move when you are, Commander. I've updated our objectives based on the latest information.
That at least is the theory behind this second-to-last mission of the game, and let's learn a bit more about it by hopping back into the world map.
We have the target site locked in, Commander. This is our chance to strike at Advent's heart. Once we control the network tower, we can finally show the world what the aliens are doing. There's no turning back after this.
Yes indeed, this mission here our point of no return. As you can see, it features only 10 enemies, so it shouldn't be too difficult, and we can even spend some of our hard-earned intel to grab ourselves some handy advantages, although it remains to be seen how useful those eventually are. In any case, that's also a decision that we won't have to make just yet, as we are not quite ready yet to step past this point of no return.
Commander, once we move on the Advent Network Tower, it's all or nothing. We won't have time to advance our research or deal with the wounded. We should only deploy once we're fully prepared.
And in terms of those preparations, there are actually a few more things I would like to do. The most important of them all is probably to wait out the next supply drop. So, until then, let's just keep scanning.
Priority message coming through, Commander. Putting it on screen now.
Alright, with the speaker gone, this screen has changed a bit. We no longer receive any updates on our progress, at least not the verbal evaluation part of it. With that being said, we are now also in a position where we could end the game at any time, so we don't really have a whole lot left to lose. By the way, it is actually very important to take out these 3 Chosen before this point in the game, otherwise they might be in for a nasty surprise later. The dark events here then we can safely ignore, I think, not only because of what they are, but also because of their timing. I doubt that any of these will actually come into effect.
All skirmishers, all those freed from the Elder's bonds, are eager to hear your orders, Commander.
And indeed, thanks to one of our last covert operations, we have received the Tactical Analysis Resistance Order, and let's activate it now. We will most likely not get the chance to grow any soldier bonds any further.
Order understood.
And so we now begin what is going to be our final in-game month, and we start it by heading straight to the black market.
Avenger plotting new course.
Now, I think by now you know where this is going. The reason why we held off on assaulting that network tower is mainly for completionist purposes, as we need to grab just a tiny bit more Illyrium to grab those last few items. And luckily we find enough of them here, 33 for 40 credits, which is 10 more than we really needed, but I already have an idea what we could do with those remaining 10. Either way, for now, let's head over to engineering.
What can I do for you, Commander?
Where we are now going to grab the, at this point of the game, probably obsolete plasma lance, and the same most likely also goes for the fusion blade here. With that, we have now acquired every single weapon that is available in the game. Unfortunately, we receive no achievement for that, and just because we can, let's now spend those last 10 Illyrium crystals in the proving ground to unlock advanced explosives.
Interesting choice. I'll send word as soon as we're finished, Commander.
Now, as you can see, this does take 11 days to complete, so we will not actually see the end of it, but that is quite alright with me. It would essentially just turn grenades that we never use into better grenades that we never use, so I hope that by starting the project we can at least consider it somewhat completed. Meanwhile, our last research project and our last covert action, those we want to actually complete, and that means we need to scan a bit more.
Avenger plotting new course.
At this point, by the way, the aliens will make much more rapid progress on the Avatar project, but then again, we are almost at the finish line, so we should not get too concerned over this.
Commander, the aliens continue to make progress on the Avatar project. If we're going to slow them down, we'll need to move fast.
Back from his injury, Red Fighter Flores then also finishes his Solace training, and so becomes the first Psi Operative to now have every last ability in the game unlocked.
Commander, the aliens are still moving forward on the Avatar project. Taking out that facility would deal a serious blow to their efforts.
And with another point of Avatar project progress made, we finish scanning for our rumor. At this point, however, we will not start another one. Instead, our journey now takes us to the Templar HQ, just so we ensure that every last injured soldier is ready to go for that final mission, but in some ways, of course, also to simply waste a bit more time.
When inspired, our team is actually quite efficient.
I await your orders, Commander.
And well, 3 more days for 1 more decryption, we might just have those. We'll see.
I will send word as soon as we have something of note.
3 more days is, conveniently enough, also the exact amount of time we still need to wait until the next covert action is done. Not that we would get anything out of it that we desperately need for this last mission. What we do get, however, is a possible distraction in the form of this month's Guerilla Ops. Don't worry though, we can safely skip these, I think. We might even manage to not even let them expire. That depends a bit on how generous the game is at this point.
Commander, there were a few wounded during the latest covert action, but after a few days' rest, everyone will be ready to get back out there.
And there we go, this one definitely done solely for the purposes of full completion. Zucchini now becoming the second specialist behind Van Dyke to reach the rank of Colonel, and we're also not going to assign a new covert action at this point. I think at this point we have done pretty much all that we can.
We completed our research in remarkable time, Commander.
And just like that, the final project is complete, 68 more intel gained, time to give Zucchini his well-earned promotion.
Commander, the lab is currently idle. We're wasting valuable time and resources by not conducting any research. Please consider providing us with a directive as soon as possible.
And well, that directive will be to just sit tight while we finish things. Zucchini meanwhile completing his path as combat hacker with capacitor discharge as his final ability, and that means it is now time. At this point, I think I can confidently say that we have done literally everything there is to do in this game. We are just 2 more missions and a handful of achievements away from full completion, so let us now embark on the first of those 2 missions and assault the Advent Network Tower. Now, I know I said earlier that this looks to be a rather easy mission with just 10 enemies. Nonetheless, we are going to grab 3 of the 4 intel options available here. Individual concealment for everyone, an increase to our squad vision, and complete immunity to the next 2 enemy attacks via the override ability. What we are not going to grab is the extra soldier, although I would normally recommend doing so. You'll see why in just a second.
Setting course for Sector 11, West Africa.
Commander, due to conditions in the field, we'll only be able to send limited personnel on this deployment. If we're going to infiltrate the Advent network tower, we'll have to use a smaller squad. Try to draw less attention to ourselves than we already do.
Yes, indeed. Without ever telling you about it beforehand, you can actually only take 3 soldiers into this one. In our case, those 3 will all be faction soldiers, a skirmisher, a Templar, and a Reaper. I have to admit though, this can be a bit of a surprise if you play this mission for the first time, especially since you can no longer back out of this screen. So realizing that you're stuck with only 3 soldiers and grabbing that 4th slot after all, that is not going to be possible. And this I think also explains why there are only 10 enemies on the mission. For only 3 soldiers, 10 high-level enemies is certainly a bit of a challenge, and it will be one even for these 3 here who have all ascended to the rank of Colonel. Now, one thing we're going to do here before we get going, let us purchase a proximity mine, just so we can use it at least once in this playthrough. In all aspects, damage, armor shredding and blast radius, this one is better than the regular alien grenade, and throwing it does not even break squad concealment.
Sky Ranger deployed.
Squad green to deploy.
Commander, it's time we put Advent down for the count. This'll be a 2-pronged assault. First, we hack the heart of the Advent Tower and disrupt their network before the speaker finishes his latest broadcast. Shen's cooking up a little surprise for them that should more than get their attention. With Advent in an uproar, we'll access the portal and take the fight to their front door. All goes well, they won't even see us coming. It's risky, but it's the best shot we'll get. Once we start this, there's no turning back. Move to infiltrate the network tower. Locate the access point and hack in to seize the broadcast signal.
Alright, double and triple concealed, we now start things off. Concealment will actually be the source of some frustration in this mission, that much I can tell you already. Meanwhile, our target is right ahead of us, and we'll have to see how to access it, as the walkway we can spot over in the shadows does not seem to be accessible. And so our options for movement are rather limited, I would say. At the very least, we can safely get Reaper Celica onto the high ground without being spotted. We also don't spot any enemies ourselves just yet, despite our increased sight range, and so our first turn here is simple and straightforward. Let's just dash everyone up as far as they can go. On the enemy turn then, we spot an Archon, and they are surely not alone. For now, however, the pod remains in the shadows, and so we have no choice but to get closer.
The target is marked.
In doing so, Celica then reveals that it's a Spectre accompanying the Archon. Nothing too dangerous as our first alien pod, and since we have no timer to worry about, we can set things up properly, and then finish the turn with a round of overwatches. It looks though as if our 2 enemies do not get close enough to detect us, and thus our overwatches remain untriggered, and so I suppose we'll have to initiate the action ourselves. And we're going to do so by moving Celica onto the high ground. One thing you might be able to see here is an unusually large detection radius for a Reaper. We'll talk about that in just a second. For now, let's attach a homing mine to the Archon. With our next move then, we're going to move up Mox, and even though he has blue screen rounds, we will target that Archon. It has far more hit points, and it's important to reduce those. So, there we are, 8 hit points left, both on Archon and Spectre, and that means Templar Logan is guaranteed the killing blow on either one of them with his rend attack.
They've got eyes on me. Target neutralized.
And with Logan's momentum movement then, we are going to move right up into the Archon's face.
Moving to position.
Keep in mind that our Templar has his very own version of Bladestorm too.
They're backing up. Advance. Hostile target down.
So, 2 enemies down, 8 more to go, time to keep moving. And at the beginning of the mission we already saw that walkway ahead of us impassable, which is why we are now heading down towards the building over on our left side.
I will always find you.
Doing so then reveals 2 more Archons as well as an Andromedon, and it is at this point that we can also once again see our enemy's detection radius for Celica again. Normally a Reaper in concealment can get very close, about 2 or 3 tiles. In this case, unfortunately, the game seems to completely disregard her being a Reaper, and so she seems to only benefit from the regular concealment that any other class would get. That's a bit unfortunate and most likely a result of that squad-wide concealment bonus we grabbed at the beginning of the mission. Although doing some digging online, it seems to me that other people report the same issue even without that bonus active. One theory is that otherwise it would just be too easy to complete the mission stealthily, as there is in fact no mission objective that requires us to kill all enemies.
Come on, focus.
My failure is my own.
You cannot run.
I imagine this aforementioned issue is also why the map has a very linear layout, so that you are kind of forced to run through all of the enemies that are present. Now, 3 of those have just engaged us at this point, and unfortunately none of our reaction shots found their mark, so we now have a combined 69 hit points to deal with, and this time we'll open things up with our Templar. We're moving him in close, carefully checking for any further hostiles that we might be able to spot before they can see us, and then we're going to use Lightning Hands on the first Archon over here. Unfortunately, the Archon dodges, so we only hit it for 2 points of damage. Still, it is in a great position for rend and the resulting Arcwave. "10 damage, disoriented, and a further 4 points to the second Archon. All well and good if it weren't for these 2 entering the fight now as well.
You can never escape my sight.
Right, so looks like we have just found 5 of the remaining 8 enemies on this mission. Not exactly a situation you want to find yourself in with only a 3-person squad, especially one that, apart from our skirmisher, is not exactly great at the whole action economy thing.
I know where you are.
So we are left with no choice but to reveal Reaper Celica.
The shadows fail us.
This is unfortunately necessary so that we can get close enough to deploy a Claymore. I don't want to use Banish just yet on a single Archon, that seems a bit overkill, so instead we are aiming to damage 2 of them at once here, even if the Muton is unfortunately just 1 tile outside of the blast radius.
I'll leave this here.
Before using Logan's bonus move then, we will Wrath attack with Mox, a 98% hit chance against the Archon in the middle here.
Will be avenged. I take a new approach.
This also sets the Archon on fire, so it will take a bit more damage prior to its next turn. A turn that we are actually hoping to be able to use for a good amount of damage ourselves, particularly from Logan's Bladestorm, which will be able to kill the first Archon if we can hit it with Whiplash. That we can, and we still have an action point left with Mox. First of all though, let's activate Logan's parry, and then we're going to activate Battlelord, so that whenever an enemy in range takes an action, Mox can take one of his own. Now the enemy turn begins with the Archon here taking 3 points of fire damage. That's great for us, because it means a Bladestorm kill would be guaranteed if it gets close enough, and the Andromedon going on Overwatch here is also quite handy.
Neutralized.
Now at this point you might be asking yourselves, why are we not getting any of those actions with Mox? Well, that's because A, he does not have line of sight to the Andromedon, and B, you don't get actions for enemies that die on their turn, as technically they are no longer in sight. I had hoped for the Andromedon though to trigger the first use of Battlelord. Instead, our Claymore now only has a single target left. Looks like Banish would have been the better choice after all. This time though we get our action. Mox is ready to interrupt the enemy turn, and we're going to do so by having him throw the proximity mine on top of that claymore. He won't be able to kill anyone with just a single action anyway, and if the Muton now moves just a single tile, it's going to explode. First of all though, the Muton takes aim at Logan, but thankfully misses. Looks to me though like that was in fact already enough to trigger the mine. So here we are. You may have also just heard a turret in the background. Very importantly though, this is in fact not yet our turn. This is just Mox receiving another action as a follow-up to the Muton. And we are now going to use that action on saturation fire, so that we are able to deal a bit more damage to both the Archon and the Andromedon. Very importantly, this also removes the Andromedon's Overwatch, which does in fact make things a lot easier now that it's back to our turn. For a moment there, I was a bit concerned about Logan taking damage, but the Muton's lucky miss might just allow us to pull off another flawless mission here today. Let us not get ahead of ourselves though. First of all, we are now going to have Celica take a 97% against the Andromedon, just to soften it up a bit for Logan's Bladestorm later on.
The target is marked.
Alright, one more reason why you should always use superior repeaters if you can. A lucky trigger from Celica here that makes things a bit easier. Up next then, we are now going to take 2 shots with Mox. The first, fueled by blue screen rounds, will deal some good damage against the Andromedon's shell.
I am almost out of ammunition.
While shot number 2 is guaranteed to take out the Muton. And that leaves us now with Logan, who can swiftly slay the Archon. And at this point, it really does not matter whether we use parry or momentum. However, momentum would move us forward, possibly detecting further hostiles, so we'll use parry instead.
Target neutralized.
So, there we are. That leaves us now with one final part of 3 enemies somewhere on the map, possibly in this last building over here. As you can see, there is also only one path to get inside, so let's recloak our Reaper and get moving.
You will never hide from me.
This then also reveals the turret that we heard earlier, and unfortunately, once again, even though we have specifically told Celica to use her Reaper Conceal, she still has a fairly large detection radius. Now for this turn then, we're not going to engage. Mox can reload and then go into cover, while Logan keeps him company and then goes on Overwatch. On the enemy turn though, we do not have any hostiles revealing themselves, so let's go to work on the turret before we proceed further. In doing so, we also catch a brief glimpse of some enemies further in the back. Looks like Celica had marked them already. Looks to me like we're dealing with a heavy mech, as well as with at least one more Archon. The turret then, not really much of a challenge. Mox's blue screen rounds bring it down to 6 hit points, and Celica has armor-piercing rounds equipped, so unless she misses the 99%er, this should be the kill. Alright, lovely, and with that we can now end our turn with Templar Logan once again going on Overwatch.
No place for you to go now.
Our last enemies of the mission then, an Archon and 2 heavy mechs. Thankfully, only Celica has spotted them yet.
Your clumsy patrol is moving.
And even though there are some windows for them to look through, it seems like we should be safe to approach the front door without getting detected. That is, at least with our Reaper.
That's one of their transmitters. They didn't put a whole lot of effort into disguising the alien tech involved.
The design may be a function of the network itself. The amount of psionic energy filtered through that system is beyond measure.
A bit more chatter then about the alien's transmitter.
Reloading.
What we are interested, however, is the console controlling it further inside of the building.
Got it covered. No trespassers.
Our last 3 enemies here also seem to be very happy patrolling around that console, and with some walls and doors in between us and them, this might give us the perfect approach angle, so one by one we're sneaking ourselves into the entrance area here. Once again then, the patrol keeps moving and still does not spot our presence. Let's give them one more turn though, maybe we can catch them in a round of overwatches. That might give us a nice head start, but it is certainly not necessary.
What was that sound?
And indeed, it looks like our enemies do not fall into our small trap. So let's get this going then with an ionic storm that we can launch right into the middle of all 3, conveniently also putting Logan into bladestorm range.
Target in range. Move to hack the command console.
Okay, very smart move by the mechs here, going on Overwatch and thus not triggering Bladestorm. Nonetheless, the situation is now looking very dire for our 3 enemies, and that's only going to increase as Mox can now take the kill shot against the Archon.
I am the victor.
That leaves us now with the 2 mechs, but before we can get to them, we need to move Celica out of the way, which now gives Mox free range to use saturation fire once more. And even though it says here that this will only do 7 to 8 points of damage, it will of course do much more than that if it's used against robots.
Strategic asset near. The Elders rage at my triumph.
Those robots then dropping a laser sight and what can only be very outdated Chosen information. Either way, if our shadow chamber numbers were correct, the mission site is now clear of any hostiles.
I'm at your service.
So let us move Celica over to the console. This also immediately gives us our next turn, so let's have her hack it to complete the mission objective. Any bonus hack rewards we can get at this point are pretty much useless. The only thing we care about is hacking the broadcast array.
Status confirmed. We have control of the network tower. The signal is going out.
And there we are, mission complete. I'm not exactly sure here why it says that we killed 12 enemies. Even with the turret, there were only 11, unless there was a second turret somewhere on top of a roof that collapsed. Either way, our 3 heroes have done their job. And like I said earlier, that job can of course also be completed without clearing out all hostiles. The Icarus armor would be a good tool for that, paired with 1 or 2 extra actions from bondmates or Psi Operatives. Not to mention that of the randomly rolled intel bonuses at the start of the mission, there is also one that gives you a free charge of run and gun.
has cleared the perimeter, sir. Meeting limited resistance.
Well done, Doctor.
Yes, it would appear the feedback pulse is having the intended effect.
Shen, status. Did it work?
Advent assures us this breakthrough will be available to all citizens immediately. We go live to the speaker for more.
Fellow citizens, for 20 years we have put our trust in Advent, in the Elders, because we believed a better future is possible for all. Today, that trust, that belief has been rewarded. Advent peacekeeping forces are traveling across the world, carrying the greatest gift from the Elders. A revolutionary gene therapy, yes, but so much more. This is an end to disease, to decay, to pain. The beginnings of a new tomorrow, available to all of us today. Truly, humanity finally takes its rightful place amongst the stars.
I expected something of a learning curve for our new recruits, but they've done a remarkable job, Commander.
Right, not exactly sure what Tygan has been smoking to call these guys new recruits, but either way, Mox, Logan and Celica return home from this second-to-last mission of the series, bringing with them one more laser sight and a pile of corpses, none of which we really have any use for at this point. And so here we are, ready for the grand finale next week. My current plan is to take all of those MVP votes we had over the course of this series and to send out those 6 soldiers who have the highest number of wins in those polls. Perhaps much more importantly than that, however, we will need to unlock the Who Needs Tygan achievement on that last mission, which means completing it using only conventional gear. So no fancy plasma weapons, no special armor or ammo, essentially everything that we have relied on for these last 20 or so episodes will be forbidden. So that's going to be one hell of a final challenge for this run, I think, but I am very much looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well. For today then, let's make the cut at this point. As always, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.